What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Frankie DeStoli Show. It's been a little while, but we're here on episode 50, guys. It is the 50th episode, and I was looking back. I started the Frankie DeStoli Show. The first ever episode came out, on December 4th. And I remember I started this show mainly because I was going to be on the Rich Dad podcast, which, if you're not familiar with the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, that is a book that I really attribute to totally changed my life when it comes to my entrepreneurial and business ventures. That is a phenomenal book. It's a mindset book. I've recommended it so many times. Any entrepreneur that's pretty much involved in real estate for the most part has read that book, or at least knows the concepts of it. And that book I read back in 2020 when I was in medical device sales. And I left my medical device sales job, on a big basis for that book. When I read that I was, really trading time for money, and I need to be buying assets that are going to support me in the future, support my family in the future. That's what initiated me to leave medical device, where I was making well into the six-figure mark as a 22-year-old kid, and said, I'm going to go take a 60% pay cut to work for this startup real estate investment company because I wanted to trade that time for money and trade it for education instead. So Rich Dad was a huge aspect to my backstory. And then when I left my new kind of W-2 job at that real estate investment firm that I was with for about 3 years, because I also realized that once again, I'm climbing a corporate ladder, trading time for money, I went and started D&D Equities with my partner, Steven. And as that went on, I had a phenomenal opportunity to jump on the Rich Dad podcast, which aired December 19th of 2024. And before I got on that show, I was like, man, I need to start my own podcast to push people to listen to the show. And ultimately, at that point, I was still relatively green as an entrepreneur. I was about 6 months in. Officially, I left my W-2 job in June of 2024. So I was about 6 months in of being an entrepreneur. And I started my Frankie DeStoli podcast. The first episode dropped on December 4th, about 2 weeks before my episode dropped on the Rich Dad Show. And that show definitely gave me a lot of push towards the Frankie DeStoli Show. And as we sit here, recording this 50th episode, it has not been linear, right? Like I said, that episode dropped December 4th, my first ever Frankie DeStoli Show pod. And I was dropping about 2 to 3 a week. And for a decent amount of time, I was pretty consistent about 3 a week. So there's 52 weeks in a year, right? December 4th is a little less than a month away. So overall, it's roughly panning out to be about an episode per week. But there was a time where I was dropping about 3 a week, right? So that means that there were a few dry months, and we just came back from a dry month, right? Like I did the rare 21-day challenge, which if you're looking through the podcast history, you're seeing 21 days every single day of a rare episode coming out. Rare is an acronym for my community Rosary in Real Estate, where we did a 21-day challenge on understanding and praying the Rosary, where we went through, who Jesus Christ is, who our Blessed Mother Mary is, the history of the Rosary, why pray the Rosary, the promises of the Rosary, the mysteries of the Rosary, and the saints that prayed it devoutly. We went through all of that. And that was 21 days consistently. And I did not count those as episodes. So overall, if you're looking at the history, there's probably about 80 episodes that dropped, but I really only count officially, numbered episodes. And this is number 50. So again, has not been linear. There's been dry months. The rare pod 21-day challenge dropped and ended on October 7th. And we're sitting here recording this on November 10th. So here's a month of where it didn't go by, with no episodes coming out. And this is something that overall I've been struggling to stay consistent with. And I've been very much trying to analyze that because I am a creature of habit. I love routines. And that's what today's episode is really going to focus on. We're going to talk about routine building. And I've been trying to understand why I've faltered a little bit with recording podcasts. And it can't be really lack of content. I think that's maybe what I kind of start. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Am I saying things that are redundant? But there's absolutely not that, right? Like there's no lack of content. Just to give you guys some idea, over this past month, we've flipped a house where we've made money, but we could have made $30,000 more. We bought 3 duplexes where we should have bought them for $35,000 less. We had a tenant send us a demand letter basically trying to sue us for over $20,000. We've refinanced about 6 properties. We did cash out refinances. We've acquired about another 6 properties. That's just on the real estate side, right? On top of that, I became a Knight of Columbus. Rosary in Real Estate's held multiple events where we've talked about, things along the lines of Our Lady of Fatima was last event, and this event coming up, that's actually tomorrow, probably the time this episode will air, which is November 11th. We're talking about the promises of the rosary. So we have a lot of rare things coming up. The rosary and real estate community is doing a lot more marketing. We're going to break into church bulletins. We had a lot of stuff just going on, right? And of course, things in regards to my family as well. And of course, there's so many current events too. We look at, Pope Leo and the moves that he's made since he's been in his papacy. We look at Donald Trump, kind of flaunting a potential 50-year mortgage. We look at, a lot of different elections that are going on and how that could, kind of play a role into, Christianity and what that kind of looks like, as well as just, aspects across the United States. So there's so many things. There's so much content. So I can't put my hat on the fact that I don't have enough content to be sharing on my podcast, and that's why it's been faltering. So what does it come down to? And I think it comes down to just being in rhythm, and, momentum is so big. And I think when I've recorded the 21-day rare challenge, I really realized the power of momentum when it comes to, I've realized it obviously in a lot of other aspects, but especially when it comes into podcasting, because on day 21, even on day 14, even on day maybe even 10, I'd call it, it became just regular. Right? I was like, all right, cool. I got to jump in front of the mic. I got to record an episode. It was natural. Whereas when I take these breaks, even, coming into this episode here, it's like kind of trying to start that engine again in the winter when you haven't started it in months, right? And it's like, it's going to be very much trying to push it, and it might need a boost. But once it gets that boost and it's on and it's running, you want to keep it running. You want to recharge the battery. Very similar is how it goes with podcasts, and really anything that you're doing, right? Even reading. I set out a goal at the beginning of this year, and we're going to talk about the difference between goals and routines in a few minutes. But when I set out in the beginning of this year, I set out a goal to have 30 books down, right? 23 actual hard books in hand, and then 7 audiobooks. And at this current moment on November 10th, I believe I've done 14 books, or I'm in book 14 right now, but I've done no audiobooks. And there's been a few months where I've read like 3 or 4 books in 1 month, and then I went dry for like 2 months. And again, momentum is the key. You have to stay in motion. But what I've realized is there's times where I'm staying in motion and I'm doing everything right, but then you just kind of stall out, right? You plateau a little bit. How do you overcome that plateau? That is another thing that we're going to be talking about today. So I feel like as we hit this kind of 50th episode, and believe me, I'm very happy to be here. I seriously, sometimes I look at the data and I look at, what the Frankie DeStoli show has done, who's taken it. And I've gotten so much feedback over it this past year that I'm so appreciative of. So many people that have reached out to me that said they've made financial decisions because of what I said. Now, listen, I don't give any legal advice. I'm not an attorney or anything like that, but they've made these decisions and they've told me that they're very happy about those decisions, and that they've, taken their next steps to getting into real estate investing. But even more than that, so many people that have reached out to me that said, I've grown deeper in my faith because of the things that you've said. I've incorporated some of the things you say. And when you hear that stuff, I know it's the Holy Spirit working through me. And it makes me want to get back in front of the mic. And I know that I have an obligation to get back in here and to continue to push that stuff, because I know it's been very helpful for some people. And there's so many people that I listen to that it's been helpful for me. And I know that if they stopped recording, I would not benefit from their, obviously their stoppage. I like when they record episodes. So all that to say, I'm going to try to really incorporate some of the things that we're talking about today into my own routine for the Frankie DeStoli show, especially going into the new year. And again, we're entering kind of chaotic times, with the holidays coming up, Thanksgiving. My wife and I, our wedding anniversary is the 18th of November. That's the same day as my daughter's birthday. She was born on our 1-year wedding anniversary, which I'm so, so thankful for. And that's such a blessing. So, I got birthdays coming up. I got anniversaries coming up. We got Christmas coming up. We have all these things coming up. So I don't want to, set the table too much in regards to how much is going to get done kind of before the end of the year. But I want to get back to a level of consistency. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about building in habits. We're going to talk about building in routines. We're going to talk about how you could utilize those routines to become the person that you're looking to become, and to, kind of get into the goals that you're trying to set and accomplish them. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, I want to just say a couple of things. First and foremost, Rosary and Real Estate, as I mentioned, is the community that I formed to bring people of faith together that want to grow in financial freedom, right? The 2 pillars of Rosary and Real Estate is generational wealth through real estate investing, and spiritual poverty through our love and understanding of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, right? It is a predominantly Catholic group, but it is an overall Christian group. Again, Catholics are Christians, originally from the very, very beginning, there wasn't Catholic. It was just Christian. Catholic is universal, the universal church. And then it kind of split into a bunch of different denominations. And now we kind of denominate, Catholicism as a sector where really it's the original Christianity. So it is a Christian group, but majority of people that are in there are Catholic. However, having said that, it is not a strictly Catholic group. If you are a Christian, you love Christ, you want to learn more about him and his teachings, by all means, obviously come out to any of our rosary and real estate events. They're welcoming for anybody that wants to be there. We have people that aren't Christian that are there that just want to learn about Christianity and want to learn about real estate investing. So everyone is always welcome. We held our first ever virtual event actually last month, and we have our next virtual event on November 11th, which is going to be the day that this podcast drops. I'll be putting the link to join in the show notes. So if you want to come on, that starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you can't make it, obviously it might be a little short notice for you hearing about that. That's totally okay. We're going to be holding another virtual event in December. And if you go to the Rosary and Real Estate website, which is a little bit under construction right now, I'm revamping it as we're doing some more paid marketing strategies that are going out, but you will be able to see in the short future all of the upcoming events for pretty much the next, 4 to 6 months. So you'll be able to plan ahead for those. But also, if you haven't, join the school community. The Rosary and Real Estate group is on School. It is a totally free community. I believe at this time we have about 74 members. I'm really trying to up those numbers because, again, guys, it's totally free. It literally costs you nothing. You get updates for all the events coming up. I post about real estate investing strategies. I post about Christianity, things that are going on, different, feast days that are happening, all of that stuff. And it's just overall a great community. And there's people that are already helping each other, which is really awesome. People that are, trying to look for lenders and they connect with lenders, people that are looking for property managers, they connect with property managers, people that are looking to grow deeper in their faith and want to talk to other people that are further along the path. They talk with each other. It's a phenomenal group that I'm very appreciative of. And I am doing everything in my power through, the power of the Holy Spirit to push that group and get it as big as possible so that everybody knows more about what's actually important, which is not necessarily passing down generational wealth, but passing down generational faith. So that's number one. Number two, if you are looking to learn how to invest in real estate specifically, I do have a course, the Stoli's Dojo REI. It's a wholesaling course that has 12 and a half hours of wholesaling real estate. So if that's something that you're interested in, by all means, go to thestolisdojorei.com. You could sign up there. If you use the code TFDS, the Frankie DeStoli Show 10, you'll get 10% off of the course as well. And then we also have a mentorship program through DeStoli's Dojo. And I'm 99% sure about this. I got to look at this a little bit deeper, but I'm 99% sure that 100% of everyone who's done the mentorship for the Frankie DeStoli, the mentorship for DeStoli's Dojo has done real estate deals. I have to check that number, but I'm 99% sure that it is 100% convert rate on people that do a mentorship that actually do real estate deals, and not just like do a deal where they're like a 5% owner with somebody. Like, no, they actually run the deal. They either bought the property themselves, they wholesaled the property, they've lended on the property, they've done something in regards to the real estate realm where they have full, ownership and dictation over real estate deals. So again, if you want to learn strictly about real estate investing and you want more of, fast-paced, consistent learning, mentorship, go to DeStoli'sDojoREI.com. But if you are looking to, be a part of a community that focuses on, not just generational wealth, but that kind of faith aspect too, that spiritual poverty, go join the Rosary and Real Estate School community and come out to our events. So all that to say, let's get into routine planning. We're going to be talking about routines today, which I think is very, very great, being that this is our 50th episode, and we're going to try to establish a little bit more routines to have a little more linear action for you guys in regards to, how we drop episodes and stuff like that. But one thing that I'm going to pull from a lot is a book called Atomic Habits. And if you haven't read the book Atomic Habits, it's a phenomenal read. I actually did the audio for this one. I did this last year, and it's really, really helpful. And we're going to talk about some of the key aspects of that book, just a few. And then I'm going to tell you guys kind of about my routines, how I really plan them, things that I kind of incorporate to make sure that I execute on them, and how I face some challenges that come along with it as well. But Atomic Habits really differentiates between, goals versus routines, right? So basically a goal is like, saying like, I want to, run a marathon. Let's just use that as a prime example, right? I want to run a marathon. You're not going to be able to just go and start doing that, right? You need to build out routines. And when you build out routines, it's really systems. That's super important, right? And I think about this from a business perspective as well. It's like, if I want to streamline a maintenance request from my tenants, let's say, right? I could, have the tenant text me, and then I could reach out to my property manager, or I have the tenant text my property manager, and then she reaches out to my contractor, and then my contractor tries to plan a schedule. That's all things that I can do. And I could still get it done that way. But 9 times out of 10, there's a simpler way to do it. And most of the time with property management softwares, my tenant could put a request in through the property management software with a picture of what needs to be done. That could automatically queue to my property manager. My property manager could basically click a button, which sends to my contractor's email. And then my contractor clicks a button where he schedules it and then communicates with the tenant, right? So all that to say is you can have a goal. There's 10,000 different ways to get to that goal. But the realities of it is you want to try to create a routine, which is in actuality really a system. That is the big focus, right? And in Atomic Habits, he talks about a system and he goes through it in these kind of 4 passages. There's the cue, there's the craving, there's the response, and then there's the reward, right? And the example that he uses in the book is about working out. So we're going to start there, but we're going to flip it into a few other things. So the cue is something that needs to be very easy, right? And the way that he puts it out is putting your workout clothes by your bed, right? So that when you wake up in the morning, your workout clothes are already there. It's easy. You do not need to go and start looking for a shirt or start looking for, where did I put my, running shoes or whatever the case might be, because that adds a layer of difficulty. And it can be such a small layer of difficulty that, you might, before you go to your dresser to grab your workout clothes, you might look at your phone and something might have came up while you were sleeping at night, something for work or whatever, that already throws you off and you're saying, I don't have time to work out, right? Something that simple could throw off your routine. So that cue needs to be very, very easy. It needs to be right in front of you, literally right in front of you. The second is that craving. And the craving, you want to make it attractive, right? So for instance, let's just say you really like listening to, this is from the book, right? You really like listening to podcasts or you like listening to music. You combo that with going to the gym so that that craving that you have of listening to that, the music that you like or the podcast that you like goes with the gym. I can relate to this directly. Like I very much love not necessarily energy drinks. I'm not a Monster guy. I'm not a Red Bull guy, but like Jocko, if you guys know Jocko Willink, he has like those Jocko Go's. They're like kind of like energy drinks. He says that they're really healthy for you. I do trust Jocko. Jocko is like one of my guys that, if I had like a foursome on the golf course, it would probably be like Jocko, St. Joseph, and maybe like Robert Kiyosaki. Like that would probably be my foursome. But, Jocko I definitely trust him and I love his Jocko Go's. And I had this thing where like I would only want to go to jujitsu if I was able to drink a Jocko Go like on the way. And that was kind of like my craving. So I was like, oh, like it's Wednesday, I got jujitsu today. Like I'm going to crush a Jocko Go. And overall, like that, again, whether that's good or bad, I don't really drink them anymore, but I have drank a few Celsius. And again, it's kind of similar. I try to stick away from those things, but that's the craving. Right. So if I'm going to drink that Celsius or I'm going to drink that Jocko, I'm going to combo it with something that I don't really like to do. And believe me, I'm a martial arts guy, but sometimes going to jujitsu and blocking out an hour and a half of my time, sometimes it's just hard for me to do. Same with like going to the gym. So try to combo that thing with something that you like. And try to make it obviously good for you, right? Don't say all right, cool, I'm going to go to the gym. And because of that, I'm going to have like a tub of ice cream before. Obviously that doesn't make any sense, but something bad, you don't want to do that, right? You want to make sure that it's good. Then the third one that he talks about is response, right? And response should be easy. So starting with 5 minutes in the gym, right? So again, you have that cue. It's got to be easy, right? It's right in front of your face. You have that. Then you have the craving, which is attractive, right? Something that you're able to combo it with that maybe you enjoy doing. And then the response needs to be something simple, like just being in the gym for 5 minutes, even if that's where you need to start. And I talk about this a lot when I talk about faith, right? And we're going to break that down shortly, but it's a good kind of opportunity to talk about it as we're talking about fitness. So the rosary could be a very intense prayer, right? If you pray 5 decades of the rosary, it could take 15 to 20 minutes for sure. If you pray all, 15, 20 decades of the rosary, it could be like a full-blown hour. And in some cases, people be like, man, I can't even pray for 10 minutes. And that's totally fine, right? Really, when I look at the rosary, I look at that as going in the gym and putting up 225 on bench, right? Most people aren't going to be there. They're going to have to start with just doing a push-up, and that's totally okay. So in this, example used in Atomic Habits, he talks a lot about that too. Go into the gym just for 5 minutes to get that response that happens there. And then the last thing that it talks about is reward. You want to make it satisfying. How do you have a satisfying reward? Well, progress is definitely satisfying, right? So if you're seeing progress throughout, that's always satisfying. Think about going and going to the driving range for golf, right? You might have like one good shot, but that's that shot that like puts you on, the top of a mountain and you're like, wow, I had such a good shot there. And I'm going to try to bring that to the course. That's a little bit of that reward. But also, how do you reward yourself just in general, right? And that could be something like, you really enjoy when you go to the gym, coming back and then being able to like sit on the couch and just relax in silence for 10 minutes. Like that might be your reward, something that overall just makes you feel good and is going to have you having something to look forward to when you finish that workout. So just to kind of put a bow on that. The cue needs to be easy. Put your workout clothes in front of your bed. The craving needs to be attractive. Pair it with music or pair it with a podcast or whatever it might be in regards to, in this example, working out. Response should also be an easy response, right? Going to the gym even just for 5 minutes just to get started there. And then the reward needs to be satisfying. What are you doing afterwards to make sure that you kind of, continue to be motivated to going back and doing it again, right? To restarting that routine. That's your system. Now let's talk about this from a perspective of like, starting your day with praying. And I'm going to use this because a lot of people have reached out to me through the times of recording this show, through the times of Rosary and Real Estate, and they basically just been like, man, like where do I start? Where do I start when it comes to building a faith-based life? And a lot of times, guys, it starts just with the way you start your day, right? Like we really should, a big thing that you want to focus on is like giving your first fruits to God. If you give your first fruits to God, you've already started the day on the best possible note. Right. And I think there's so many examples in the Bible where, Jesus is praying in the morning. And that's a very big thing to do. So what I'm going to use for this example is starting your day with a little bit of a morning routine prayer. Right. So basing it off the skeleton of the Atomic Habits layout, that first cue needs to be easy. So how do you set yourself up for an easy morning prayer sesh? Well, what I personally like to do is I do my morning prayers in my office. So I'll set my desk up with just some prayer stuff that I might be looking at that morning, right? If I'm going to be using the Bible, I'll put my Bible on my desk, right? If I'm going to be using a book, or maybe some quotes from St. Padre Pio or something, I'll put those on the desk. I'll have a nice little prayer candle that'll be on my desk as well. And I'll have a little spot prepped for where my coffee's going to go, right? Something along those lines. I'm getting myself positioned for the morning prayer routine. I think that's very important, right? Same way as like, what James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, talks about getting your workout clothes in front of your face, putting them next to your bed. It's the same thing. Set up your prayer station for that morning to get your prayer routine going. The craving, make it attractive, right? What I personally like to do is I like to drink my coffee while I pray. I'm a big double espresso guy. I say it all the time, my little doppio. I like to have my doppio made the night before. That's another cue, something that I make it easy. I make my doppio the night before. I put it in the fridge because I like mine over iced. But if you don't make it, over ice, then you go downstairs, you pop the little pot in or whatever the case might be, get your coffee ready. And that's my attractiveness to that. I like my coffee while I'm praying. Other people might not necessarily be that right? But you want to find like something that you're going to also look forward to get into it, right? And that could also be maybe even, a prayer routine off like Hallow or, Truthfully or something along those lines. Any of those other prayer apps, they have great aspects in regards to how to pray. That could be something that maybe you'd like to do as well. And that's kind of your morning routine there also. Your response, again, should be easy. And the same thing that, author James Clear says, start with 5 minutes. Right? Every single time anybody comes up to me and they say, oh, how could I bring faith in my life? I say every morning when you get up, even if it's 30 seconds to a minute, just get a morning prayer in, right? Lord, thank you so much for this day. I offer you this day, Lord. Please take it. Please make it good. Please guide me on this path so that I might know you on a deeper level. Something, it could, guys, I'm telling you, it could literally even be that. It could be 10 seconds. But even if you just give yourself 5 minutes of silence and prayer time, that's very important. And again, it's stackable, right? You do 5 minutes the first week, next minute you do 7 minutes. And the week after that, you do 10 minutes, right? And it continues to stack. That's how you build those habits. That's how you build those routines. And the reward, right? How do you thank yourself for the progress? And I think when it comes to faith, similar to working out, the reward is over time. When you go to the gym, if you get a good week in, let's even call it, at the gym, odds are you're not going to see much progress, right? The scale's probably not going to change that much, if at all. The muscles probably ain't going to look that much better. Maybe if you're just leaving the gym and you take the shirt off, you might look a little more yoked. But overall, it's not going to be anything that's like, oh my goodness, there's a huge difference here. And it's very similar with faith, right? With faith, when you pray, even if you just take those 5 minutes out of your morning, there's a lot of benefits that come from that, right? You start your day with God. You feel good. You feel in a similar way like you do when you leave the gym. You feel good, right? You might feel a little sore, right? Maybe you had some conversations with the Lord and you're kind of like, oh, yeah, like maybe I had to talk about something that was going on that I really liked that happened in my life or whatever the case might be. You might feel a little sore, but overall, you feel a sense of accomplishment and you feel pretty good. And you say, man, that felt good. I want to do it again, right? But that relationship is built over time. And the reward, that progress comes over time. When you continue to go back and you continue to pray, it's built over time. So you want to try to find something to reward yourself that is going to keep you wanting to come back. And again, that feeling of leaving the gym feeling good, that feeling of, coming out of that meditational prayer is a good feeling. That alone will make you want to come back most of the time. But sometimes, it gets a little dry. That happens even to the great saints. The saints go through periods of dryness where, overall they feel like God is dormant in their life. And those are the times where you grow even deeper in virtue and you need to push through. But you want to try to find something to reward yourself. So try to figure that out, right? If you finish that, 5-10 minutes of prayer, what is it? What comes next in your day that gives you some reward, right? Try to find those things. So those are really the basis, the outline from Atomic Habits and how you can kind of incorporate that. And again, I think the big thing here, guys, is start small. Like I was saying, the rosary could be intense, right? That's the same with like even going to mass, right? A lot of people that come to me and they're like, hey, I want to grow deeper in my faith. I don't say, oh, go to a mass. That's not necessarily what I lead with, although you absolutely should. That's an amazing, gift that we have is the sacraments and receiving the Holy Eucharist. But it's not necessarily that. It's usually just start in the morning with some prayers or go pop an adoration hour for 10 minutes, or here's a podcast that I would listen to, or here's an app that I would use like Hallow, right? Things along those lines. Those types of things are what set the foundation. It's like if someone hasn't been to the gym in 2 years and they go back, they're not going to be squatting 300 pounds. It's not how it works. They have to work their way up. It's the same with faith. So it's all stackable. You could stack these things together, and that's how you really build some growth. So a few other notes on Atomic Habits, and we're going to get into my morning routine and what I kind of prescribe and think is a good opportunity for people to take on. Atomic Habits really says focus on identity, not on motivation, right? It says instead of saying like I want to be a runner, say I am a runner. And I relate this a lot to like being a real estate investor. Before I even owned any houses, I would say I'm a real estate investor. And people would be like, oh, how many houses do you own? Well, I don't own any right now, but I'm actively in the market. I'm looking. And the more that you are saying it, the more you build an identity with it. And that's very important. Now I look at it as, yeah, I am a real estate investor, right? I own over 40 units at this point. And my day is just being a real estate investor, but it wasn't like this. And I'm sure in a year from now, it's going to look a lot different. And a year ago, it wasn't like this, but it all starts with that identity, building that in, understanding who you are. If you want to say, I'm a man of prayer, say you're a man of prayer. And then when you look at that identity of being a man of prayer, then you can look at, well, what do I do to identify as a man of prayer? Do I say my morning prayers? Do I say my nightly prayers? Do I pray the rosary every single day, right? Do I go to confession? Do I go to mass every single Sunday? Is it non-negotiable? These are all things that start stacking. But if you say I'm a man of prayer, you're going to start to think, all right, well, if I'm saying it, what makes me a man of prayer? And then I'm going to start doing some of those actions. If you don't do them, then it's a little bit fraudulent and you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, all right, am I actually doing the things that I say that make me the person that I am? But that's big. Identify. Don't use just motivation, right? I want to be a runner. Say I am a runner. I want to be a man of prayer. I am a man of prayer. Stick with it through the plateaus. I think this is probably the hardest, right? Change a lot of times feels invisible, especially in the beginning. And you need to be planning for these plateaus. And I think when I look at my routines, this is a big thing that I've started incorporating. Before I venture into a routine, I really focus on, all right, what plateaus am I going to face, right? And now these plateaus come in a lot of different forms. Let's just say you go on a vacation, right? This is a big one. And I had a buddy of mine that was talking to me about this. He was like, look, I'm doing really well on my routine, but I leave for Europe for a week. Like I know it's going to go down the hill, down the drain, right? And look, at the end of the day, yes, most of the time that's how this is going to work, right? If you are waking up at 5 a.m. and you're doing a workout and you're eating healthy and you're on a good diet and you're reading a lot and you're doing all these things that make you really feel good, and then you go to Europe for a week and you're, surrounded by unbelievable food all the time and you're with your family and, the gym and the hotel is like non-existent. Like these things, there's factors that are going to play a part and you need to prepare for those things. And when you prepare for those things, it's a lot easier for you to recover. right? So if you're going to go on a trip for a week or a weekend, whatever the case might be, you need to say, all right, look, my morning routine of if it's the 5 a.m. wake up and the workout and the reading and X, Y, and Z, it's probably not going to stick while I'm away, and that's okay. How do I manage? How do I maintain? How do I adapt to the things that I have going on while I'm there? All right. So, all right, I'm away. My 5 o'clock wake up, it's probably not going to work. So I'm going to shift that to 6 for this week that I'm away. My workouts every single day are probably going to be really, really challenging. So I'm going to break it down to just 3 in the week, right? My reading is going to be tough. I'm not going to be able to really probably do that in the morning because we're going to get up and the kids are going to want to go and do activities. So I'm going to have to adjust it to just, instead of doing 10 pages a day, I'm going to do 5 pages before we go to sleep. That's how you calibrate. And it's very important because if you don't do that and you totally fall off, it makes it very hard to rebound. Again, like we said in the beginning of this episode, motion, right? Momentum, that's so huge. So if you calibrate it to break it down from being what it was to a kind of, not necessarily a watered down version, but just a variable or a derivative of what it was, then when you get back home, it's a lot easier for you to just turn it back up. And also there's predictability here. You know that it's coming. So you hold yourself to a little bit of a different standard, but you still hold yourself to a standard. You don't let it all fly out the window. So vacationing is one. What's another one? Like sickness, right? So I do Exodus 90, and Exodus 90 is definitely by far the hardest one that I do because most of my routines, I'm good for about 30 to 40 days. After that, I definitely hit a wall, and I'm trying to prepare for that a little bit better. But Exodus 90 is one of those where I need to really work to push through that wall because it's 90 days. And every single Exodus 90, I've gotten sick. I've done it 2 years in a row. I'm sure I'm going to get sick again this third year coming up. So I need to prepare for that because a lot of times when I get sick, it throws my workout routine off. It throws my, prayer mentality off. It's just everything is thrown off. So I really have a hard time gearing back up and getting back into rhythm. And a lot of times that's where I'll have a steep decline in Exodus 90. So you got to prepare for that too. All right, if I'm getting sick, how do I prepare for that, right? What do I know that I cannot do? If I'm getting sick, obviously working out is going to be really, really challenging. So I'm going to have to shift that in a different way. Can I do more mental workout, right? Or if I know I'm going to get sick or I'm getting sick, whatever the case might be, I'm going to give myself 48 hours of absolutely nothing. All right, I'm going to just rest. I'm going to relax. I'm going to change my diet up based off my sickness, whatever the case might be. I'm giving myself a 48-hour window. After that, I'm going to gear it back up over the next 72 hours to be kind of half of what I was doing. And then by that week's up, I'm going to be back into full gear. You got to project. You need to plan, right? It's like they say, like, what's that saying? It's like, if you don't have a plan, if you don't plan to fail, or if you don't plan to win, you plan to fail. I don't know. I'm botching that saying, but you probably understand what I'm putting down there. It's like that, right? If you don't have a plan, you're going to lose. That's basically how it's going to work. And another one is like tiredness, right? We talked about that. Driedness, tiredness. How do I react? How do I respond when my body is being fatigued? These are all things that you very much need to plan for as you're going into building a routine, especially if it's going to be a longer term routine. If it's like a week routine, you probably don't need to plan for stuff like this, but it's going to be 30 days plus. You're going to want to plan. So a few notes, again, start small. And again, I think I said this like 3 times, but when anybody comes to me asking to bring faith in their life, I tell them morning and evening, keep it light, morning prayers, evening prayers. I think just in routines in general, that's a good place to start, especially for entrepreneurs. Speaking as an entrepreneur, obviously, the day is just, you don't know what's going to come, right? Some days I'm chilling. Like I'll maybe take, 3, 4 phone calls. It's nothing crazy. I kind of have a lot of leisure throughout my day. And then there's other days where I'm just on the phone nonstop. I don't have any time of day. I'm trying to just fit in little things as I can. And it's always kind of changing. There's some days where I'm done by 2 p.m. There's other days where I'm done at 10 p.m. There's other days where I don't have to work at all. There's other days where I'm working all day. So it just constantly ebbs and flows. So for entrepreneurs, what I personally like to do is I like just morning and evening routines. That's it. I keep the middle of my day kind of free open. I let it kind of flow. I'm taking things as it goes. I'm rolling with the punches, but I stick to my morning. I stick to my evening routines. I think that's a great way to do it. And if you have a 9 to 5, that's actually even easier to do because you know your schedule, right? You know you're at work from 9 to 5, add another 30 minutes in for commuting, whatever the case might be. What do I have to do from, 4 a.m. to 8 a.m.? I have that block. And then, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., I have that block. Let's just call it that. That's where you start adding your routines in. And once you build in those routines, then you could start building in routines within your daily schedule if you're able to kind of understand what that schedule is going to be consistently. And again, for 9 to 5 people, that's very more predictable. For entrepreneurs, it's not always that way, although you could absolutely build systems into your day-to-day as an entrepreneur to get more predictability as well. But that's a big thing. You need to know your chaos spots. If you know that 10 to 4 of your day is pretty chaotic, don't plan to go to the gym for an hour in the middle of that, right? Set yourself up for success. That's very important. So I'll kind of give you guys a little bit of my morning routine right now. I just came off of St. Michael's Lent, which was August to September. It was about 46 days. And that was an awesome routine. I had a really, really good routine. There was some intensity with that. Right now, we're kind of in a little bit of a blank space when it comes to Exodus, guys, right? Exodus 90 this year is January 5th to April 5th. It's 90 days leading up to Easter. St. Michael's Lent's always that August to September period. So you kind of get in this realm where you're kind of like, oh, I don't really have that much of a routine. So I like to kind of create my own at this point. So what I'm doing currently right now, I've been doing this for the past 2 weeks, and I plan on doing this up until the Immaculate Conception. That's kind of my stop date for this. That's December 8th. But I do a 4 a.m. wake up. Although I will say, the past week I've tried out something a little bit differently. I've basically said, Lord, wake me up when you want me to wake up. And most of the time I've woken up anywhere between 3:54 to 4:12. Today I woke up at 4:12. That was the latest that I woke up. So been trying that out for about the past week. I'm liking it. I feel like it kind of, when I'm kind of wake up, it kind of feels a little bit more of a divine wake up. So I kind of like that a little bit. But overall, I was setting the alarm for 4 a.m. for the first week. So I think I kind of put my body into a little bit of a regimen there anyway. But a 4 a.m. wake up, I get out of bed. I already have my Doppio in the fridge ready to go. But before I do that, I take a nice little cold shower. I go grab my Doppio, and then I sit down at my desk at 4:15 for 15 minutes of silent prayer. I run that to about 4:30. From 4:30 to 5, I do theology study. I've been reading this book right here, Credo. It's from Bishop Athanasius Schneider. It's a phenomenal book. It just kind of goes through basically the entire Catholic faith. So I've been doing a little theology study, trying to sharpen up a little bit on my apologetics as well. And then from 5 to 6, I do a creative hour where I work on creative things, whether that's rosary and real estate or anything else that I have going on. I'll be starting to kind of build some of that stuff out. I really take that hour to myself to be creative, because I feel like at that time in the morning, my mind is most in its creative state. And then from 6 to 8:30, I kind of let that be free, because that's when the kids start waking up. I'm downstairs, we have breakfast going on, playtime with Bernadette and Francis, things along those lines. I keep that pretty free. And then at 8:30, I start working again for my typical D&D equities and all of that other stuff. So that's my morning routine. And like I said, I'm good for about 40 days. And that's kind of how I based it. I based this for about 33 days is what I did it leading up to the Immaculate Conception. And then I'll probably take about a 2-week break from December 8th. It's actually probably going to be a little bit longer, because January 5th starts Exodus. So, kind of get into Christmas, all of that stuff. I'll have a little bit of a break where my routine will probably drop a little bit, but I'll calibrate it. I might not be doing necessarily the 4 a.m. wake up, although I do really love it. But I might not necessarily be in the gym every single day. It might be 3 or 4 days a week, whatever the case might be. Once that kind of is upon me, I will be planning for that. But the last thing that I'll kind of say on this is, what I really operate well in is I like to think of my morning routine as a deployment, right? Like a military deployment. So I think people, they get frustrated because they're like, oh, I started this routine and I was good, but then, I kind of fell off and now I've just totally lost it. And I think the realities are they don't really put many end dates on routines. And it's not necessarily something that you strive to do, right? It's like, if I say like, I'm going to go to the gym every single day, I don't want to get to a point where like I'm not going to the gym every day. Like, I love the gym, right? Like it makes me feel good. I want to be there. If I, especially even more than that, if I say I'm going to pray every day, I don't want to get to a point where I'm not praying every day, right? And again, I think every single day you should have some sort of physical activity, and you should absolutely be praying every single day. But if you're going to pray an hour a day, that's not always an easy thing to do. All right. Even for myself right now, it's not an easy thing to do. And it's not necessarily good for me to expect that out of me every single day. Now, I could strive for it every day for sure. But if I'm comboing that with working out, if I'm comboing that with reading, if I'm comboing that with family time, if I'm comboing that with work, there's a lot going on. I'm packing basically 5 pounds into a 2-pound bag every single day. And eventually the bag's going to burst, right? So what I like to do is I like to think about it as deployment. Like I just started this 2 weeks ago. I started this new routine that I'm running until December 8th. December 8th is the end of deployment. I come back home, quote unquote. I have 3 weeks of kind of, watering it down. Now, does that mean I'm not going to be praying? Absolutely not. Does that mean I'm not going to be in the gym? Absolutely not. But it's not as strict. right? And I think that's the thing. I hold myself to a different standard right now. If I don't wake up and I don't do certain things, I'm upset with myself because I'm on deployment, right? I am a military mission on my own at this point. And the objective is to be the best that I could be and to, get everything done that I want to get done. So if I miss those things, I'm failing the mission. That's how I look at it. And some people might think that's strict, but I think that's just accountability. I think that's making sure that you get things done, the things that you said that you're going to done, and have integrity, right? Do the things that you say you're going to do to yourself. But that's the way that I try to look at these things. And I think that's a great way of looking at it, honestly. If you say, all right, cool, I'm going to wake up early, or I'm going to do, X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to not, have alcohol for the next 40 days. Or for me, it's ice cream. Ice cream is my weakness, guys. It's my Achilles heel, right? So when I do these deployments, I don't have ice cream. All right, these things that are important. And then it gives you an end date to look forward to. December 8th, cool. I could have ice cream with my kids. That's what I'm looking forward to, right? December 8th, awesome. I could sleep in if I want to. That's how you want to look at these things. So all in all, guys, routines are important. And with all that being said, I'm going to do my best to be on a little bit of a better routine with the Frankie DeStoli show and try to drop a little bit more consistently for you guys. But I appreciate you guys listening. Listen, pray the rosary every single day. And like I say, pray the rosary, buy real estate. And don't do what makes you happy, do what makes you holy. And I promise you, if you do that, you're going to end up in the place that's the happiest, which is heaven. So I'll see you guys later. Peace out.